Hello, how are you doing? My name is Joseph Ngugi, one of the co-founders of Pre-PT Grind. If you are new to this page, welcome. Myself and Casey and our team are here to help just to serve you as pre-PTs. Pre-PT Grind is a platform whose sole aim and purpose is to help pre-physical therapy students like yourself get into PT school without wasting time or money. So tonight, we're going to have a conversation about some key things that really would be important to look into or think about doing if you want to have a shot at getting into a physical therapy program. We have Awele, we have Shanahan. Shanahan, you just don't disappoint, bro. You don't disappoint one bit. We have Sydney. Thank you guys so much for joining me here this evening. Looking forward to diving into tonight. What's up, Paul? How you doing, brother? But tonight, I want to have a conversation that really was sparked by a talk that I had with a pre-PT, one of our accepted system alumnists, a student that has been in the accepted system, got into PT school this past cycle. I had the opportunity to speak with her, about 30 minutes ago. And as we were talking, I was like, all right, I have to talk about this tonight because there are certain things that set students apart. So this whole pre-PT game, if you're new to it, if you're early on in the process, let me just fill you in on something. The whole pre-PT game is not as much of, doesn't really require as much guesswork as most people think. What ends up happening for a lot of pre-PTs, Jessica, how you doing? Diana, how you doing? Philip, how you doing? Andrew, Tyler, how you doing, brother? Like really for a lot of pre-PTs, we play this game with too much guesswork, thinking that that's the norm. So certain things that I saw last cycle, right? Let me just go to last cycle. This is around July, August of 2018. Now we're in 2019 of 2018. I'm going to tell you some of the things that I was seeing before I dive into my top 4 things that I'm going to share with you tonight. A lot of the things that I was seeing is this is normal. This is unfortunately the norm. But what I was seeing was, well, when application cycle opens, most people were waiting until the application opened to even think about trying to figure out what was going on. There was too many people that were saying, man, like, yo, can y'all edit my essay? It's due in 2 days. Can y'all do this? It's due this. I have my letters of recommendation. I want them, they're due in 3 days, but I'm trying to figure out who I should ask. I'm like, all right, like there's too much guesswork we're using as pre-PTs. And in 2019, if this is the year you want to get accepted into PT school, we have to start having a different conversation. We have to start looking at the things that have worked well for pre-PTs that have gotten in and the things that have not worked well. We have to start looking at what it's actually going to take as a pre-PT to get accepted. And tonight, I'm just going to talk from the perspective of students that have come through our program, students that we have worked with, students that have had their own battles. This one in particular had a very low GPA. Some you guys have seen on Wednesday nights, they'll come in here and they'll share their stories. Some have low GPAs, others have been rejected multiple times, and so on and so forth. But tonight I want to talk to you about the 4 actions that you really need to do in order to get into PT school so that PT programs stop overlooking you. Because the honest truth is a lot of programs are overlooking you, and they shouldn't. A lot of programs are overlooking you and they don't even have a chance to understand what your story is. I've spoken to too many pre-PTs in the last 6 months who have told me what their story was. And just from the 20-minute conversation we would have, I'm already like, well, you're definitely a match for physical therapy. Like the story you just told me, the reason for you even wanting to be a physical therapist, what has driven you, what the frustrations of not getting accepted has done for you. I felt it all. And I was like, if the schools had an inkling about how amazing you were as an individual based on all these things, you'd be a match. Problem is most programs don't even have a chance at seeing that. I spoke with a student that was accepted to a school that accepts close to 100 applicants a year. However, the last cycle, they had 1,600 students apply. So 1 in every 16 students was accepted into PT school. That's a lot of students that were accepted, but yes, that's a lot more students that were not accepted. So what did those students that got accepted do differently? What are they doing differently? What can you do differently as a pre-PT this cycle? Because that's really it. If we can just figure out what the steps are this year, what you can start doing now to set yourself up, well, okay, now you're putting yourself in a position to do well as an applicant. Because if you're staying in this group, if you're inside the pre-doctor physical therapy students page, if you're following pre-PT grind, if you're doing all these, you're on these live streams, you're listening to the podcast, if you're doing all those things, but then the cycle opens up and we're still guessing, hoping that just because we were exposed to all this information and content that it's just going to translate over. Well, it simply doesn't work that way. It simply doesn't work that way. So tonight I want to share with you 4 actions that you can and should start taking right now before applying. Right now, we are at the beginning of the year. Actions you can start taking right now to set yourself up as a pre-PT so that by the time the application cycle opens, by the time you're ready to submit your application, it's all good news. It's all good news because I've had the opportunity to see students that have been in the toughest scenarios. I'm talking students that have started with 1.9 GPAs, students that have been at 2.4 GPAs, students that have been at 2.7 GPAs, students that have been rejected to 2 or 3 cycles. I'm not talking schools, like 2 to 3 cycles being rejected and having to deal with what that meant for their families, what that meant, in regards to the anxiety that builds up, the pressure that builds up, the voices, around you telling you to pick something else, choose a different career, do something different. And still coming out on the other side as DPT accepted students. So here's the first thing. The very first thing that you should do this year, if you want to have a shot at getting into physical therapy school, if you want to have a shot at just doing the actions that the top students are doing, the top accepted students are doing, and I'm not talking about top based on grades. I'm not talking about GPA. I'm talking about the students that have the best shot at getting accepted into PT school. The number one thing is they understand the human element. Right now as a pre-PT, it's important to understand that you're not and I've said this before, but I think pre-PTs sometimes miss this. It's nerve-wracking. It's nerve-wracking to have to try to, submit something or try to prove yourself worthy to a program unless you realize that it's just other human beings. Unless you realize that this whole thing is the human element, which means that everything from your application, everything to how you do your essay when you type it out, everything to how you're doing your campus visits, understand that you're dealing with other humans. You're dealing with other humans. So how do humans think? How do humans respond? When someone is building a relationship with you, how do you respond? Do humans respond well to someone that is just looking for what they can take? No. One key thing that humans like is someone that invests in them. So if I meet you for the first time and I'm like, hey, tell me more about yourself, we might have a chance of talking a little longer than if I come forward and I just start telling you everything about myself. So the human element, students that are doing well right now, when they're taking advantage of their campus visits, when they're taking advantage of their interviews, even for those of you that are prepared right now, they understand that. They understand that they are playing a game where it's a human to human relationship. It's a human to human interaction when they're talking to programs, when they are reaching out, to other individuals after they have interviewed, whatever it is, when they are writing their, whatever you do, just understand that yes, it's a system. Yes, they have a way of deciphering which students, they're going to pick and which students they won't pick, but you're playing a game against other humans. Casey and I did a live stream on Thursday night. If you missed it, I want you to go back and listen to it. Casey and I did a live stream where we were talking about the biggest fear of PT programs. We broke that down. We were talking about how the biggest fear of PT programs is the fact that they are scared of being rejected in the same way that you're scared of being rejected. It's just that they're doing something about it. They have incentives. They tell you that they'll accept students with low GPAs, last 60 credits. They do things about it, but we were now applying it to you and what you should be doing as a pre-PT to really emulate some of the same habits that have made PT programs successful. And one of those things is understanding the human elements. Number 2, students that are doing well right now, applying, students that are in the top, I don't even want to give a percentage, but students that are in the top percentile as applicants, the ones that are giving themselves an amazing shot at getting into PT school, also have access to the keys. They understand the game they're playing. Right now, I know there's a big football game tonight. For those of y'all that don't watch football, I'm sorry. But there's a big football game tonight. But right now, for myself, because I came from East Africa, and I didn't really understand American football. So I remember. Yo, what's up, Carl? How you doing, man? Like, I remember the first 2 Super Bowls that we watched. You know, it was really my dad and me. My sister wasn't really feeling it. My brother wasn't born yet, and my mom didn't want anything to do with sports, so she just did her own thing. So it's my father and I trying to figure out football. And if you get 2 foreigners that have no idea how football is played, it's the most entertaining thing to watch. I'm pretty sure that y'all were sitting in the living room just watching us commentate and trying to figure out what was going on. Like, why were guys hitting each other? Like, what were they trying to do? Like, it made no sense to us. Like, I mean, half the time we were making fun of the fact that they called it football when you barely used your foot, right? Except for when you're trying to get a field goal. But honestly, like, if you put me out on that field at that time, there's no way in heck I would have known what to do. I wouldn't have known where to run. I wouldn't have known who to tackle. I would have probably tackled my own teammates. But it's the same way as an applicant. If you're a pre-PT, it's the same thing you're doing if you don't understand the game you're playing. So students that are in this top percentile are taking the time to understand the game that they're playing. And the problem for most pre-PTs is we're waiting until, like, what's the next thing? Okay, so the next thing is the application. So I'll wait until PT CAS opens. This is what happens. So I'll wait until PT CAS opens, and then when it opens, I'll figure it out then. I'll just see what my classmates are doing. Maybe we'll pull an all-nighter and we'll just apply together. Maybe we'll just pull out all our transcripts and just do it. We'll just try to figure it out. When it comes to the interview, I'll figure it out. When it comes to this, and then what ends up happening is you look back and you realize there were certain things that you could have done to avoid making major mistakes. I'm talking mistakes from schools that you're applying to. I was talking to a student that applied to 9 schools and they weren't even eligible for 8 of them. Like, how does that even happen? You have to understand the game you're playing. You have to understand everything from the types of schools that you're applying to. You have to understand whether you're even setting yourself up for the schools that you're applying to. What we tell our students is we say, honestly, if you do this right, you should only need to apply to 5 schools. 5 schools that you're setting yourself up well for, 5 schools that you're tailoring yourself up well for. Like, if you can do that well, you will have a good shot at getting in. But most people are playing it in the dark. So they're like, well, let me apply to 10 schools, maybe 12, maybe 15, maybe 20. I think one time Casey and I were looking it up on PT CAS to see what the highest number was. It was like 60 something. I don't know. It was something crazy. But like, I didn't believe it at first, but then I was like, well, it's PT CAS. So, I mean, it must be, factual. But you have to understand the game that you're playing. But even when you understand it, you have to be willing to do what it takes to get across the finish line. The students that have gotten in with a low GPA have not gotten in just because they were like, all right, let me just retake this one class. Let me just No, they have said, like, Ben put it this way. Ben Kim in the live stream said he started playing angry. And that's the term that he used. But pretty much he said, I went all in. He burned his, like, he pretty much said, I'm not going to have any backup plans. I need to play this game as if I'm going to win it. And so he put everything into it. His time, his habits, the people he put himself around, all those things that he did consistently played into him getting in. And that was the second thing. Number three, the pre-PTs that are setting themselves up well are playing by different rules. They're playing by different rules. Right now, it's the norm. It's the norm to wait and see what everyone else is doing first before I make a move. Nobody else is preparing for application. Why should I prepare? My classmates haven't started PT CAS. I have time. Oh, you only have 25 hours of observation hours? Oh, okay, I got time. I'm saying that because that's how I used to think. That's how I used to think, and it actually screwed me up for quite some time. That's how most pre-PTs have thought. And even when we there's these surges where we get like energized, where application cycle opens. All right, I gotta focus. But then after that, it kind of dwindles down. So you have to start asking yourself, like, am I playing by different rules? And by different rules, I mean this. We have Carl Bourne Jr. on here. Carl Bourne Jr., I'm going to use you as an example, bro. Carl is playing by different rules. Carl has said, you know what? I'm not just going to do the whole, let me just do some shadowing hours. Let me just do, what's everyone else doing? I'll do, I don't know. I'll become like a PT aide, PT tech. He said, Joseph, Casey, Greg Todd, because that's his mentor as well. He said, like, I want to play things a little differently. So what has he been doing? Well, he got into the acceptance system to begin with. He was like, yo, I need to understand this whole thing. Put me around the right people. But what he started doing, like for real, he actually, today, he just released his blog. He started writing. He started writing for different platforms. He started working as an intern for different powerhouses in the PT profession. He started he was doing this stuff and he was like, yo, let me just put myself around the people that are making movements in physical therapy. Let me play by different rules. Let me become an intern for Pre-PT Grind. Let me become an intern for Kyle Rice and the PT Hustle, one of the biggest names when it comes to the PT board exam in the United States. Let me play by different rules, because if I look too much like everybody else, well, I'm going to blend in. And he was saying to himself, if I'm going to do this right, not only will I understand the human element, not only will I have access to the keys, but I am going to, at the end of the day, play by completely different rules. And so, I mean, Carl, if you're on this, drop the link to your blog below, bro. Drop the link to your blog. Because I want them to start looking at what you're doing. Because the key is to play by different rules. Other students, I could talk about Sarah Stankowski. Like Sarah is currently the intern director for the Pre-PT Grind team. When she started out, she was playing D1 soccer. She was like locked into her academics as well. And she was like, yo, I just got to figure this whole thing out. And so as she was looking, all she was looking was for information. But what she didn't realize was that in order to stand out, she needed to really just do things to the point where when she was applying, when Carl was like, when she was applying, like PT programs didn't understand, like, what is this that you're involved in? What? And now you start talking a very different conversation. Darnette. Y'all saw Darnette. She had a live stream, a few weeks ago, months. I mean, time flies. Darnette was the same thing. Low GPA. She shared her story. But tonight she was telling me, she's like, Joseph, like, honestly, they just really hadn't seen much of the stuff that I was showing them. Like, it was all new. They realized that I had invested in myself at a level that was beyond what most other pre-PTs were willing to do. And because of that, they could not pass me over. So are you playing by the same rules that every other pre-PT is playing by? Are you waiting on the pre-doctor of physical therapy students page just to see what everyone else is doing and then say, well, let me give that a shot. Well, I can tell you this. That program that I told you that accepted 100 students, and it's a real program. This is not me making up numbers, but they were having to pull out of a pool of 1,600 where 1 in 16 were getting accepted. That would not cut it. It would not cut it to just play the game the way everyone else is playing it. I don't care if you have a 3.3 GPA, 3.4 GPA, 3.5 GPA. You got to play things differently. You're right, Carl. And then number 4, what the top pre-PTs are doing, the ones that are getting accepted, the ones that are setting themselves up to not guess in this game, the ones that are setting themselves up to just really to just guarantee their acceptance, because it's expensive, it's time, it's effort, it's anxiety. Well, really, they're rolling with the right people. They have the right people around them. Not because it elevates them any, it's because we all have our mental rabbit holes. I have mine. I've had more moments this year, this past year in 2018, where I have doubted myself than really more than I can remember. Maybe I just recall it because I was more reflective this past year. But I couldn't stay in those states long because I had to make sure I had the right people around me. People that were ready to just snap me out of it based on how they, like the perspective change they gave me, the investment that they had in me, the way that they lived their lives. Like one of my people has been my fiance. Another one has been Carl. Carl's one of them. Casey, Greg, other physical therapists that I have made sure are part of my community. People that I know are also going to have their downs as well, but I know are so hungry about serving the profession at a very high level that, I might as well roll with them because I know they're not giving up for anything. I know they're not slowing down for anything despite what happens. And that formula does not change as a pre-PT. That's how I survived as a pre-PT. If you ever want to, I think it's like episode 20 in our, I don't even know how I remember this number, in our podcast, I actually have an interview with my pre-PT all-star team is what I call them. They were just other pre-PTs that from the very beginning, we decided we had the same level of hunger for what we were pursuing as pre-PTs. And we decided, listen, let's be ride or dies with this whole thing. If anyone was slipping, my two hardest classes were chemistry and physics. So when I remember them spending time and time again, hours on hours, where we were up till 1, 2, 3 in the morning, just helping each other out, just so one of us did not have an excuse to not get accepted into PT school. When we ultimately got accepted, we got the phone call on the same day. All 4 of us. 2 of those now live in Tampa. Actually, they live like 5 minutes away from where I am. Here in Florida. We went to school in Michigan. We went our separate ways. But now it's realizing that those are the people that you have for life. And the pre-PTs that are killing it understand that. The pre-PTs that are killing it understand that this is a long-term game. This is not just like, let me do whatever I have to do so that short term I can just get across the finish line. This is saying like long term, what do I need to do what do I need to do to make sure that I not only get in, but long term I'm setting myself up to be an absolutely dominant clinician and professional, but really to have the right network so that those times that I'm down, because those times come, I just told you, I had a lot of them this past year. Like those times that I'm down, I have that network of people to fall back on. And if 2019 is going to be your year, these 4 things are going to be critical to do. Understanding the human element. Use that to suppress your anxieties, your fears. Understand, you're just playing a game against other humans. You're dealing with other humans when it comes to the faculty, when it comes to the interview. That's all it is. Don't let anything bigger, get in the way of you realizing that. Number 2, having access to the right keys. We give them to you. There's the accepted system. There's avenues out there presented for you, ready to give you everything you need to get in. And number 3, understanding that you have to play it by different rules, because right now, at this point, everybody, all the things that we were told, these are the things that will help you stand out like 5 years ago, are the same things everyone's doing now. So now we're a fraction of people were doing it 5 years ago. Everybody's trying to do it now. So, it's no longer what stands out. So now you have to completely change the rules, like I was saying with Carl. And then number 4, choose a good network of people. Choose a very, very good network of people and choose wisely. Because chances are those are the people that you'll have long term, like I've had. But this year, we want to make sure that you're taken care of at such a high level, not only in terms of energizing you and giving you a lot of positive vibes and stuff like that. We want to talk like the real stuff. Let's talk for real, because the things that have helped people get into PT school many times are the same things that are preventing you from getting into PT school. When you're getting rejected, when I'm talking to pre-PTs now and they're telling me, Joseph, I didn't get in, we break it down. Usually 2 or 3 of these things are missing already. And I'm like, man, this is what you need to do. And they're like, I was never even told. Like, no one even told me that. So if you want to start having that conversation, I say, yo, just send us a message tonight. Go to contactpreptgrind.com and say, yo, Casey, Joseph, let's talk. Here's my story. Here's my situation. Like, what can I do about it? What should I start looking at? What should I start playing with? Because if we can do that, then right now at the beginning of the year, we have an amazing opportunity to set you up to become a dominant applicant. Well, to become an applicant that just doesn't have to guess, so that when you do apply, you feel like you have controlled everything that you can control. And that's when good things happen on the other side. So that's the goal for this year, to get you into PT school. Question is, are you willing to do what it takes?